Now with all the stories making the headlines this afternoon, it's the ITV Lunchtime News.
Good afternoon. More than 30 people have been killed and over 100 injured after a Russian rocket strike in East Ukraine. Women and children are among those who died in the attack on a train station in Kramatorsk, which was packed with evacuees trying to flee the region. President Zelensky said this is an evil that has no limits. The UK's Ministry of Defence said today Russian forces who have left the north of the country are likely to be deployed to the east. Good morning. Britain's chief correspondent Richard Gaisford sent this report from Irpin near Kyiv.
Well, the latest British military intelligence briefing says that all Russian troops have now left the north of Ukraine. From around Kyiv, they've headed up to Belarus, back into Russia, where they're going to regroup, potentially to head further east and further south too. Here in Irpin, you can see what they've left behind. This is just one small section of a city, and there's tower blocks that have been burnt. Residential areas have taken a real hammering here. Houses in the distance that have come under artillery attack. You can hear and see the clear-up operation in the streets where they're desperately trying to scrape up as much of this glass and as rubble as they possibly can. And as we move that camera around, you're going to see a pharmacy building here. It's completely destroyed. Very hard to see that that was ever a military target. So many of the areas we're seeing across Ukraine being hit are civilian areas. That is one reason why you've got Russia now being removed from the United Nations Human Rights Council. There are a growing list of atrocities that are being looked into, more than 5,000 currently being investigated. The latest will be in Kramatorsk. Today we're hearing reports that Russia has made a rocket attack on the railway station there. Civilians fleeing from the fighting, refugees who have been hit. Dozens dead, we understand, hundreds injured, and it's getting these humanitarian corridors open and working in the east of the country that is currently proving to be one of the biggest challenges.
Richard Gaisford reporting there from Ukraine. Here, the man who murdered primary school teacher Sabina Nessa has been jailed for life. The 28-year-old was beaten and strangled as she walked through a park in South London in September. Kochi Selimaj was branded a coward by Sabina's family yesterday. Sabina's sister said the loss has broken their family.
The thought that he was waiting for some woman to attack her and do what he wanted to do. I was just thinking what a horrible animal, vile animal he is. That will just stay with me for the rest of my life. Why did he carry out such a horrific attack on her?
The Chancellor has defended his wife's tax affairs after it emerged she holds the tax-reducing non-domiciled status, which means she doesn't have to pay UK tax on her overseas income. Rishi Sunak said she had done nothing wrong in choosing the financial arrangement. Our political correspondent Carl Dinnan reports.
Rishi Sunak has responded angrily to questions about the tax status of his wife Akshata Murthy, telling the Sun newspaper, "To smear my wife to get at me is awful. Every single penny that she earns in the UK, she pays UK taxes on, of course she does. And every penny she earns internationally, for example in India, she would pay the full taxes on that." He also told the paper his wife had never based herself anywhere else offshore, seeming to suggest she had not used tax havens. But that still isn't enough for the opposition.
I personally don't think that it's right, but it is a matter for her and a matter for him. He is benefiting from the choice that she's made. It is odd looking, isn't it, that there she is in Downing Street, a taxpayer's paid-for flat, bringing up her children, married, she hopes, to the next Prime Minister, and yet she believes that she's not a permanent resident.
The Chancellor had also told The Sun that his wife would one day move back to India to look after her parents.
It's not unusual for a foreign national, a national of a different country, in this case India, who's expecting to return to India, if I understand her statement correctly, it's not unusual for that person to be non-domicile for tax purposes in the UK.
The Prime Minister and Chancellor have both suggested that as a private individual, Miss Murty's finances should not be a matter of political debate. But the ministerial code requires Mr Sunak to declare his wife's financial interests, and the pressure for him to be publicly more transparent is not relenting. Carl Dinnan, ITV News, Westminster.
And finally, it was the most glamorous day at the Grand National, Ladies' Day, of course. Alongside the fashion and fascinators at Aintree, there are several races scheduled there too. Hannah Miller is there. Hannah, so a big day at the races.
Well, the racing will be getting started here in just a few minutes, but let's be honest, for many people who've turned up here today, that isn't really the main attraction. It's Ladies' Day, the sunshine is out, the outfits have been planned to perfection, and people are absolutely buzzing to be back here enjoying hen dos. We've seen birthday parties, people having all kinds of celebrations. It's been 3 years since crowds descended on Aintree like this. In 2020, the festival was cancelled. Last year, the racing had to take place behind closed doors. Back then, the Grand National, the biggest race of all, was won for the first time by a female jockey, Rachel Blackmore, on her horse, Minella Times. And they together will be looking again to repeat that feat when the Grand National is raced here once again in front of a crowd tomorrow. But for now, really, today is about all these people gathered here behind me, out enjoying the sunshine, coming together. People that we've spoken to have been looking forward to this for absolutely weeks, months, years. They are delighted to be back.
OK, Hannah, thank you very much. And you can follow every moment of that on ITV and STV. Our coverage from Aintree follows the news where you are at 1:45. And that is it for this lunchtime. Charlene is here with the evening news at 6:30. Until then, bye-bye.